My name's Jill MacBryde and I've been asked to come along today and talk to you about business research and consulting. I'm based down in the Department of Management Science, where I'm a reader in Operations Management. I'm also the Vice Dean for Knowledge Exchange within Strathclyde Business School, so I guess I'm well placed to talk about business research and consulting. I've got a short agenda here. First of all, I want to talk about the actual amount of business research and consulting that goes on within the business school. It might surprise you to realise how many of your lecturers are actually involved in these activities. It's not just teaching that we're involved in. Then I'm going to take a few moments just to reflect on what it takes to be a good consultant. Not everybody is made to be a consultant. There's some very smart people around here, but their thing is not about engaging with industry. But the majority of staff, that is what we're about. We're involved in teaching, we're involved in research, and we're involved in engaging with the outside world. Why do companies come to places like Strathclyde Business School and ask for help in terms of business research and consulting? What are the key issues that businesses and other organisations are struggling with? So we'll consider that. And finally, I want to just finish by talking a little bit about what I see as the consulting cycle. What is it you do as a consultant? What are the activities? And how do you engage with organisations? So that's what we're going to look at this morning. Let's just start by looking at the university. Now, I'm sure you've all heard that Strathclyde University was founded as the place of useful learning. Very much that was why Strathclyde was set up, to help local businesses, to help the economy, to help social issues. And today that's very much still the case. I think everybody that works at Strathclyde has that in their DNA, the belief that we really want to be helpful and useful. Now, when we come to Strathclyde Business School within the university also takes that very much to heart. Now, there's 4 words that you might see a lot around the business school or hear us talking about a lot. And the first one there is enterprising. The Strathclyde Business School tries in everything that we do to be enterprising. We try to be innovative and try new things. The second word there, engaging. Now, we are a business school, so that is what we do. We work in the area of business and management. So very much the world outside is our laboratory. We can't just work in isolation. We have to engage with the outside world. So very much engaging. We try to be international. We're not just working with organisations that are around the corner. Strathclyde Business School is very much seen as a leading international business school. And that kind of comes across in the accreditations and the awards that we have. And the last point there, the last word is influential. Because again, what we're doing in the business school, it's not all about helping businesses. It's also about engaging with government bodies, with public sector, with third sector organisations, and actually influencing the people that make decisions. So again, that's what Strathclyde Business School is all about. We engage in teaching, we engage in research, and we also engage in consulting activities. And in everything that we do, we try to be enterprising, engaging, international, and influential. Now, all departments within the business school, and not quite all staff, but the large majority of staff do engage in these activities. But there are a number of centres that have been set up specifically to engage with organisations and help them. And here's just a few of them. Let's start with the Centre for Corporate Connections. Now, possibly not many of you are aware of the Centre for Corporate Connections, but it was set up a few years ago and it was really meant to be our kind of front door for industry, and particularly in the area of providing executive education. Now, the Centre for Corporate Connections at the moment is based up at the top of the Livingston Tower, and it works with organisations helping develop the talent within these organisations. At the moment, the kind of organisations they're working with include the Babcock International Group, the Weir Group, William Grant and Sons, Synergy, Standard Life. They're all big clients that are engaging with Strathclyde Business School at the moment through the Centre for Corporate Connections. The Fraser of Allender Institute, based within the Economics Department, has a long tradition of business and consulting, working a lot, not just with companies, but also helping government and reporting on the Scottish economy. So keep your eyes out and look for reports that are coming out of the Fraser of Allender Institute. The Scottish Centre for Employment Relations, SCARE, that's based within the Human Resource Management Department. And again, it's engaging very much with people who are interested in the workplace. SCARE does a lot with companies, but it also does a lot with people like trade unions and policymakers. The Risk Consortium, largely based in the Department of Management Science, but also draws upon expertise from accounting and finance and from economics. And the Risk Consortium actually is a group of companies who work with researchers from Strathclyde Business School on all areas of risk. Strathclyde Institute of Operations Management, now that's very close to my own research interests. I'm actually the Director for Research within SIOM, as we call it. And SIOM was set up to help organisations to improve their operations and their business processes. And we work largely with commercial organisations. People we're working with just now include Highland Spring, Lynn Products, Campbell and Kennedy, a number of organisations that you might have heard of and see every day. And lastly, but not least, Strathclyde's Technology and Innovation Centre that's currently being built down in George Street. And it really is going to be a hub for engaging with industry. Okay, how do we engage? How are we actually working with organisations and helping them solve their problems? Well, there's a number of mechanisms we use. Sometimes companies or organisations come to us directly and ask for help in terms of one-to-one consulting. Now, that sometimes is the way organisations want to work. And when we work in that kind of area, they're paying us for consulting expertise, like you would in a lot of the consulting firms. But I think one of the things that Strathclyde Business School's got is we're not just there to kind of do a bit of consultancy and then walk away. When people engage with Strathclyde Business School, they know that we're not just in it for the money. We want to build the relationships. We want to work with them long term. And we also want to get them involved in our education and our other research. So sometimes companies actually engage with Strathclyde Business School through executive education. As I've just said, companies like the Weir Group, like Babcock, at the moment are sending their senior managers to be trained in the latest business tools and techniques. And in doing so, we are giving them tools that are going to help their business. And we're not just teaching them in a classroom setting. Like you guys, we tend to be working with them and giving them projects to do. And these projects will actually be within their business. So when they're doing a project on marketing or operations management or finance, they're actually looking to improve their own organisation at the same time. So there's great benefits to that. Companies also engage with us through student projects and placements, and I'm hoping that a lot of you will get exposure through these means. If a company wants help, sometimes what they'll do is they'll come to Strathclyde Business School and they'll say, we've got an issue that perhaps we've not got the expertise or perhaps we've not got the resource to be able to do ourselves. Is this something that a student might find interesting and get something out of? And if it is, and only if it is something that's actually going to give people like you benefit in exposing them to these problems, then we will happily engage with organisations in student projects and placements. Now, every department has kind of got their own way of doing things in terms of student placements and student projects, but hopefully all of you will get to work with a client, if you like, during your undergraduate careers. Sometimes we actually bring companies or organisations in to help us with teaching. Now, again, some of you will have had exposure to that. People like Deloitte getting involved in MDP1, for example. And sometimes they get things out of that by just engaging with students. You might be challenged with thinking about a particular problem in the business, and just having a fresh pair of eyes sometimes gives that company something really useful to go away with. But it also sometimes is the starting point for relationships with organisations. Quite often companies will come in, perhaps give a lecture or get involved with some student activity, and then they might come back and they'll say, can we have students actually doing projects, or can we get involved in some collaborative research? Lastly, knowledge transfer partnerships. Now, I'm not sure how many of you will have heard of knowledge transfer partnerships, or KTPs as we call them. But KTPs are a government initiative aimed at helping technology transfer. And the idea behind them is that an organisation works with a university and to solve a particular issue or to work on a particular project. And to do that, what we do is we employ a recent graduate. So somebody perhaps coming out of Strathclyde University with a good business education. And what they can do is they can actually go into an organisation, help them with a project, and everybody wins. The graduate gets experience, the university gets access to kind of industry problems, and the company or the organisation gets help from the academic and from the graduate. And the government are kind of hold KTP up as one of their flagship technology transfer mechanisms. And Strathclyde is actually in the top 3 in the UK for university, in terms of being a university that engages with KTP. So that's something that's quite important to us. Really quickly, here's just a few kind of companies that I'm aware of that some of myself and some of my colleagues have engaged with over the last kind of 12, 18 months. So in terms of consultancy, you can see some big names there, and it's not all just private organisations. We also work with government bodies, we also work with people in the public sector, and also the third sector. Charities are also people we work with. If we look at executive education, this is changing all the time, but the kind of people we're working with in executive education include Babcock, DSTL, which is part of the government, William Grant that I mentioned earlier on, and a project that I was involved with called Future SME, and that actually came out of a big European funded research project. But in doing that research project, it was all about helping small to medium-sized companies kind of deal with the current economic climate, improve their business. And what came out of that was a number of modules that can help companies. So we've been training people in small to medium-sized companies across Europe over the last 12 months or so. Student projects and placements, well, that is just a very small selection of the list that we've got. I think in the last year, Strathclyde engaged with over 300 organisations in terms of student projects, and that's probably a very conservative number. And also we talked very briefly about involvement in teaching. I'm hoping that you guys have had exposure to a lot of organisations in your classes, and I hope you'll have exposure to an awful lot more. Okay, and KTP that we talked about there. KTP, one that I was involved in fact 2 that I was involved in, a local company called Campbell and Kennedy. Campbell and Kennedy have worked on 2 KTP projects with Strathclyde University. Scottish Water is another organisation that Management Science have been working with in the last year, and also Scottish Power. So there's a number of names in there that I'm sure you'll be quite familiar with. A wee bit of further reading for you, if you like, if you want to go away and do more research. But what we've been talking about up till now is really about university industry engagement. And it's a really hot topic at the moment. The government are very, very keen to make sure that universities are working and engaging with industry, helping our companies to grow and helping us out of the problems that some of our organisations have. So here's just a couple of links that you might want to follow up. Recent reports. One of them there was done by the Association of Business Schools, and that's a very recent report, and it actually looks at different ways that universities engage in business research and consulting to help UK organisations. And the second report is actually a government report, again in the last 12 months. So have a look at these two if you're interested in finding out more.